vlog. Is it going online?
Yeah.
Oh my god, can I see the slurs?
Yes.
No,
I'm just playing. No.
Yes, I caught them.
All right. What's crack-a-lackin', y'all? Got some, I think, orange and black tea. Y'all, this bus, I'm telling y'all, added a little bit of lemon juice. Didn't put no sugar. This is the game right here, bro. In today's video, I'm just gonna be kind of explaining my story, expressing myself, doing some type of vlog, and yeah. Anyways, my name is Jesse Coleman. I'm 19 years old. I'm born and raised here from Tacoma, Washington. And if you're not from Washington State and you don't know Tacoma, you just don't know Washington State like that, but you know Seattle, we usually say we're from Seattle, Washington. So all y'all people that is here from Tacoma, y'all know that we be saying, hey, we from Seattle, but really we from Tacoma. So I'd say maybe 2 weeks ago, I was going through just the worst thing in my life. I wasn't myself. You know, I was just very depressed. I felt very alone. And it got to a scary point. I felt like, you know, I had that support system, but I felt like I was just still alone. And the cause of this, you know, is because 3 years ago, I had went through the worst loss of my life. My first ever loss, really. You know, I've never really experienced grief in my life like that. But I've never truly felt the grief of someone that I personally knew, someone that, you know, was a parent, which, you know, like I said, a parent. So 3 years ago, I had lost my mom due to domestic violence. And she had lost her life by her boyfriend. At that moment, when I was at the house, it was just me and a lot of cops, you know, and detectives and ambulances and just surrounded by all these people that, you know, all these strangers. And for me, it didn't feel real at all, obviously, because I lost my mom, you know, and it was just a traumatic experience for me. And I felt like it was an experience that I wasn't sure that I was gonna escape from. I ended up living with my aunt here. And I'd say living, you know, with my aunt, you know, it's been a little easier. But I still feel that pain. I still feel that loneliness, you know. And I feel like if you are someone who have suffered grief from someone like a parent or just someone important in your life, you're going to eventually, you know, yes, you have this support system, but for me, I still felt alone. You know, I still felt like, you know, yeah, I had these people tell me like, you know, I love you. You know, you could call me, but parts of me just felt like, you know, I didn't have that one person that, you know, understood me the way my mom understood me. My mom was the type of person who understood me when I was quiet. You know, I was always the quiet, shy kid. I never talked. Mind you, if this was at least, what, I'd say 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and you was to tell me that I'd be standing in the camera talking to an audience, you know, across the screen, I'd be shocked. You know, I'd probably be scared. Like, you mean to tell me I'm talking to people that I don't know? I mean, maybe some of y'all know me personally, but my mom's the one who taught me, you know, listen, you have to have that self-love. And, you know, of course, after, you know, my mom's passing, I really struggled with self-love. You know, I was just really having a hard time shifting and going through this grief. Back to 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, remember at this moment, I took a nap, and I'd woken up at 10 p.m. maybe, and out of the blue, I had gotten this, you know, weird energy, and, you know, I was just kind of telling myself, like, you know, man, what am I doing? Like, and I'm speaking the truth. Like I said, I felt like I just had no self-drive. You know, I've watched other YouTubers my age who have already succeeded, who have retired their parents, who have Lamborghinis, who got BMWs, and all these things, you know what I'm saying? Like, already got their own house. You know, there would be even moments where I would go on Instagram or Snapchat and I'd see my friends who had traveled across states, you know, are going to universities. And I need to step my game, but I felt like, again, no self-drive. So the next morning, eventually, I had woken up at 5:30 a.m. I started this new routine. I took in a cold shower, you know, did my skincare routine, did my hair, gotten dressed up. And I began reading this book, Atomic Habits. I started, you know, writing 5 things I'm grateful for and 5 things I'm proud of. I started praying. And then eventually I started meditating because it really calms your mind. And I used to be that type of person, like, you know, you mean to tell me with quiet music? And so eventually, you know, I started meditating and I was really, like, taking the time into listening to the way I was breathing. And so then I started, you know, writing down in my journal just my thoughts and everything that was going on. And I realized that, you know, there was things that I needed to change in my life, you know, including these bad habits. Just like I said, I was reading Atomic Habits. And I realized that I would write down these goals that I wanted to accomplish. You know, I knew that I wanted to get into dental school. I knew that I wanted to create a YouTube channel, but I just wouldn't do them. I wouldn't do them, period. You know, same thing. I would be like, you know, all right, I want to learn Spanish. I want to learn a new language. I wouldn't do it because of the idea of putting in the work. So while reading Atomic Habits, I learned this thing where you need is cancel out goals. Start focusing on your systems. And at first I was like, all right, what system? Okay. You want to create a brand. You're like, all right, bet. I'm gonna create a clothing brand. I wanna, and after I create this clothing brand, I'm gonna get this one car. I'm gonna move to LA, California. Get this one car. All right, boom. Big house, cool. It's like, when you watch, you may be watching YouTube videos for motivation or to learn how to create your brand, but then it's like once you start putting in the work and once you start sitting on your laptop and you're doing all the, you're creating the brand, you're creating the actual clothing logo. And then after that, you're like, all right, I got to create the website. Okay? Eventually, you're going to get burnt out. You're going to get tired. Yes, that's a part of the goal. But you also have to realize your system is, all right, if I'm going to create a clothing brand, I got to create the logo. I got to know what the colors of the website is going to look like. The color of the clothing is going to look like. Okay? That's the system. You can't have a clothing brand without the logo. Same thing with a basketball team. Same thing with any sport. You're a basketball coach. Your goal is to win. Your goal is to win the next 2026 basketball tournament. Okay, that's your goal. But you know how like a coach, he'll be like, all right, I'm gonna have the whole team run laps back and forth, shoot free throws. Eventually, you're gonna have to change each day, each warm-up. You're gonna have to change each warm-up in order for your team to upgrade, in order for your team to improve. Because again, you want to win that basketball tournament. So eventually, I had rethink to myself, all right, I know that I want to create a YouTube channel. I know that I want to create some type of website. I know that I want to help people in some type of way. And so my first thought was of kind of what I was going through in my past. Again, the grief, the loss, the pain, the suffering. And then kind of just now, the self-love, the reading. And when I mean reading, I mean reading. Reading, drinking tea. You know what I'm saying? Waking up at 5:30 a.m. And doing my routine, taking care of myself, meditating in the morning before I head to work. I knew that self-love had to come first. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna create a website where I can help people. You have a purpose, but you have to change the way you think. Sometimes you have to change the way you are. And that's just what I had to do. Because, I used to be the type of person where I would care about the way people would think. Why is it so easy for me to believe in what these people are saying instead of believing in my truth? Believing me as a person. And so that's where the self-love began. That's where I was like, all right, there's gonna have to become a change. That's when I had realized the Inner Armor. Anyways, that's the name of my new website, the Inner Armor Project. Anyways. So like I said, I'm creating a new website called the Inner Armor Project, which will be about turning pain into power, because I want to help people build unshakable mental strength, rise above negativity, and stepping into the life that you were meant to live. And that's with no excuses, no limits, and it's about starting now. I feel like 2025 is just really the moment where you grow. And honestly, I didn't believe that the beginning of this year. It took me a minute. It's now August of 2025, and I'm just not realizing that there needs to be a change. So you gotta learn creativity. Create something. Do something new. Try something new. I'm telling you, bro, this is 2025, bro. Let's do this.